everybody, my name is Caroline and I'm the founder of 48 Hours Unplug. We organize slow down retreats for CEOs. Today I got the honor to interview Mo Gawdat, who was the Chief Business Officer of Google X and who is also the author of Solve for Happy, a very good book on happiness, which I would like to recommend to all of you. As a teaser, I am gonna ask him a few questions on happiness in general, but also some relevant questions for the CEOs amongst you. I hope you like it. What, according to you, Mo, is the biggest misconception about happiness in today's modern world?
Largest misconception about happiness in today's modern world is that we've learned through consumerism that happiness is something that we should acquire and attain. It's something that we work for like we work for other things. It's something that is hard to achieve, that it's, it's okay to be unhappy because, it's almost impossible to be happy all the time. And this is actually not true at all. The reality of happiness is that we are born happy, and when we were children, if we were given our basic needs for survival, like a child that is fed, safe, warm, loved, and so on, doesn't ask for things from outside them to find happiness. We are happy by default, if you want. This is the original design of us humans. As we start to grow older, we start to run out of happiness because of beliefs and concepts that we establish as, methods for us to navigate the modern world. Now, when that starts to happen, we start to believe in all of the, advertising messages that we actually need things from outside us to find happiness. We start to seek more money, we start to seek, better cars, more expensive suits, bigger houses, summer houses, all of those things in a constant attempt to find something that's already been within us since the day we were born. When we were born, we didn't ask for an Xbox to be happy. When we were born, we didn't ask for an expensive car to be happy. We didn't need anything to be happy, and neither do we need those things in our adult years. Now, the interesting side of all of this is, of course, you will tell me, oh, but all of those things are true and they're important. Yeah, they could be important. That doesn't mean you need them. But even as you look at your own experience, you would realize that most of those things never really made you happy for more than a few minutes or a few hours, or at most a few days. You remember your last car, you may have been very excited about the time you bought it, looked at it and admired its beauty, and then you sat behind the wheel and just focused on the road, and a few days later it was no longer something that made you happy, and perhaps you even started to think about when you're going to get your next car. You go on vacation and you're relaxed and happy, maybe in nature or with friends and so on, for a week or two, but then the day you go back, you're unhappy again. You make money and you tell yourself, hey, if I can make 10,000 euros more, then I'll be happy. But then you make them and suddenly you start to tell yourself, I meant 25. And so that constant chase, that constant hamster wheel, I think, is the biggest illusion about happiness in the modern world today.
Why is happiness a relevant topic for today's business leaders?
Yeah, so businesses, somehow we started to believe that you need to be grumpy to succeed in life. As a matter of fact, there has been research by Stanford that basically say people think or believe that those who are critical are more intelligent. People who find what's wrong appear in our eyes to be more intelligent. That's actually not true at all. I worked in Google for 12 years. I actually was an instrumental player in building the Google that we know today. And one of our 10 things we knew to be true, so sort of the 10 cultural rules of Google, was that you can be serious without a suit. You can actually be serious without appearing grumpy, without appearing serious. And that's a big myth that people follow in today's world. So, somehow many of us will think that, if people are happy at work, maybe we're paying them too much. That's actually not true at all. When we were building a happy environment at Google, it wasn't because our founders were wonderful people. They were, but that wasn't out of the kindness of their heart. These were executive decisions that we discussed in the boardroom at length. Happy employees are less absent. They report less sick leave when they are at work. They're actually engaged in their work. They spend less time browsing social media. They spend less time causing problems to their clients or to their peers. They are loved by everybody. Everybody wants to work with them. Happy employees they stay longer, so you don't have to have retention challenges and constant hiring. Actually through research, we know that happy employees are 12% more productive than unhappy employees. When Google would offer employees sushi for lunch, it's not because we have a bias to sushi or because we want to appear to be a fancy company. No, not at all. But when you calculate the time that it takes an employee to go on a lunch break, take an hour and a half away from work and come back stressed maybe from traffic or from being in a busy restaurant, as opposed to spending an hour and a half with their peers, laughing, getting to know them better, eating good food, sitting in a nice place and chatting, what do you think they will chat about? They'll chat about work. Some of the best ideas that Google ever invented came from conversations that happened over a lunch break or over a coffee break. Now, if you even just do the mathematics, an hour and a half in terms of man-hour or woman-hour cost from a salary point of view that is wasted on lunch every day is actually a really, really big gain for the company in terms of savings, because this hour and a half is actually spent around work or around building work relationships and so on. Happiness at work is not a luxury. Happiness at work is a very, very, very intelligent and smart decision.
Why should business leaders take time to retreat and reflect about their lives, about what they're doing? Why is that useful?
Why should leaders take time to reflect? There are two sides to the challenges of today's leadership. One side is we, like the Industrial Revolution, have been trying to create a standard image for what a leader is, which is always engaged, always running, always busy, always a little upset and irritated because things are not going exactly as they would like to. And the reality is that none of those are actually leadership qualities at all. We have to differentiate between what a leader is and what a manager is, regardless of how senior that manager is. There are CEOs in the world, including people that are very, very well known as like the ultimate leaders of our time, who are actually just very, very, very controlling managers. Now, leaders don't control, they don't push, they don't force people to do things. The definition of the word leader is that they march forward and people follow them. Now, to be able to find those things you believe in, to be able to find those qualities that make people aspire to follow you, this requires time. This requires a break out of the hamster wheel and basically constant review of what it is that you stand for. Why are you doing what you're doing? Not how should you do what you're thinking you should do. And so that time away is a time that our modern environment does not give us. The constant stress, the constant mobile messages, the constant calls, the constant reports that we have to review, they rarely ever give us the time to reflect and find what really matters. That's number one. Number two is leaders or managers or whatever it is that we are, and at the end of the day, we're humans. And I think most people forget that somehow we believed the lie that Harvard Business Review told us, that life is about work, that work is the purpose of our life, which is absolutely not true. Of course, you go to work because you're passionate about what you do. Of course, you go to work and you try to make a difference and you try to make the world a better place. And you do as well try to make a living for yourself. You try to make a career for yourself. All of that is okay. But work cannot be equated with your life's purpose. It cannot be equated with your life itself. And so for leaders to find time away from their desks, away from their troubles, away from the daily pressure, to reflect on their own self, to find out what they want to be as humans, is something that we rarely ever give ourselves the chance to do. And if you actually ask people, I know a friend of mine who is a very, very good, who was a very good friend of Steve Jobs, who was called 3 days to Steve Jobs' hospital before Steve Jobs died. And he sat her down and he said, you know, all of the stuff that you've been doing, all of the stuff that you run to achieve, all of the stuff that you're working so hard to buy another one-off, another house, another car, another, you know, a bonus, all of that. I will tell you, the one thing I want most today was to spend more time with my family. Now, we all, without exception, there are lots of statistics that no one has ever on their dying bed looked back in their life and said, I should have worked a little more. Everyone would say, perhaps I should have reflected on my own needs as a human, as my own connections to other humans, and the things that truly make me happy. And so perhaps, you know, taking time away is an invitation for us to connect with that human in us and really do what life is actually all about.
How can meditation help today's business leaders?
Well, I have a bit of a controversial definition of the word meditation. So meditation as we teach it today is a Californian knockoff of a very deep spiritual practice that was designed at a different time. And so if you tell me meditation is to sit down and say I would probably say that doesn't work well for business leaders. It didn't work well for me. I'll be very open and honest. Meditation, however, from a neuroscience point of view, is a practice where you capitalize on parts of your brain, specifically your prefrontal cortex and your insula, which are responsible for experiential thinking. So experiencing the world as it is a process that actually is a thought process. It requires brain resources for you to see the world as it is. When, you know, the original design of spiritual meditation asked you to focus on your breathing, it was basically saying, look and experience at something that's actually happening. Don't live just inside your head thinking about yesterday's reports and tomorrow's presentation. Now, that kind of meditation is actually scientifically proven to improve our ability to de-stress, to think clearly, to focus on what matters, and so on and so forth. Now, the challenge with meditation in terms of the knockoff of the spiritual meditation is that the original design of spiritual meditation, which actually truly worked, was designed for monks or spiritual practitioners to spend 4 to 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours a day, meditating for years on end. And when you do that, you know how it is, huh? What you use grows and what you don't use shrinks. And so the parts of your brain, your midline areas of your brain that are responsible for incessant thinking and unhappiness and complaining and all of that stuff, actually, because you tend to use your experiential brain more, those parts shrink and those parts grow. And so people who meditate for hours would end up having very attuned attention, not only to their breathing, but to everything happening around them in life. They would be in a business meeting, they would notice body language a lot more, they would notice the tone of the meeting a lot more, they would notice every number on the slides a lot more, and so on and so forth. The challenge with today's world is no one has 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day to meditate. As a matter of fact, the statistics in the modern world, which are UK based, will tell you that less than 1% of the entire population meditates more than 1 hour a day regularly every day. And so and basically that tells us that we don't put in enough engagement to reshape through neuroplasticity the way our brain works. So the way I meditate combines this with on-the-job meditation. On-the-job meditation comes in many, many forms. We can discuss them in details, but I'll just give you very high level. First of all, I gave myself meditation breaks during my day, which would be a 15 minutes between every 2 or 3 meetings, where I literally sit down and reflect without a paper, without a pen, without a mobile phone, without talking to anybody. I also gave myself exercises to meditate while I'm walking through the modern world. So, one of my passions, or one of my practices or habits, is to walk to work. And as I walk to work, instead of answering my email or having a phone call, I look for one beautiful photograph every day. So I take my phone camera with me, and I really, recognize what's happening in the world around me. Through my 40 minutes walk, I get 40 minutes of meditation. If I'm driving to work, I set 6 radio stations, and I actually attentively listen to music so that I don't have any ads or songs that I don't like. By doing that, I'm present, I'm paying attention, I'm not just having music in the background. If I am in the meeting room and my team presents a slide that has 6 numbers on it, I will literally meditate on every single number. And so basically, after a while, they started to go like, Mo, this is not an important number. And I would go like, I'm so sorry. If it's not important, you shouldn't have put it on the slides. Now that it's on the slide, I need to understand where it came from. And that actually made our presentations as a team much more efficient after a while, because people actually also meditated on their own slides. After they made them, they looked at them and said, do I really need this here at all? Now, all of those practices are more around mindfulness, if you want, which also is a term that I think is a bit, of a knockoff that's created by the modern world. But it really is all about presence at every point in your day. And so we start with the meditation in the meditation room as a practice to give us the ability to control our brain, and then we move to practices that are during everyday life. Once you get there, the quietness, the peacefulness of your brain gives you clarity as a leader that is highly needed to handle situations, especially difficult situations, with calm, with composure, and with the right decisions.
What, according to you, will distinguish great from good business leaders going forward?
So business has evolved over the last 100 years in ways that have been sometimes really badly influenced by the greed and the desire to sell more and to become more profitable. And so, the evolution of advertising and the impact of Mad Men around changing how the messages are given to consumers, really not about the quality of the product or the value that they get, but more about like how can we work to your fear of missing out and to your greed, and to your ego, so that we can engage you to buy our product. And in an interesting way, businesses have grown on messages that are not always positive, and products have become incredibly successful, which are not really products that make our world a better place. Now, I tend to believe, through working at Google and through working at Google X, specifically the last 5 years of my career as the Chief Business Officer of Google X, that there is a lot more success and money to be made by actually creating businesses that impact our world positively. So, Google in general has always made a simple decision taught to us by Larry Page in what we used to call the toothbrush test, in terms of we're not going to champion a business that's not going to solve a big problem that affects the life of 1 billion people or more. And so, maybe 1 billion people is Google's scale, but every business can actually make similar statements and say, within my community, within my country, within my village, within my scope of business, I can actually champion a problem. And if I manage to solve that problem so well that people like my solution and use it twice a day like they use a toothbrush, then I'm bound to make a lot of money. And so when we built Google X, in 2008, 2009, we built it based on that principle, but also on a principle that we call 10X, which is a principle that basically also pushes us for solutions that have never been done before, radical ideas that can sound a little bit like science fiction, but can truly push the world forward, not an X% improvement, but a 10X improvement. Now, that is not, again, out of the kindness of our heart. Larry is a wonderful person who truly wants to make the world a better place. Sergey is a wonderful person who wants to make the world a better place. But they're also intelligent, they're geniuses in a way, because they realize that this truly is what made Google what Google is today. Now, Google is by far one of the top 2 companies in the world in terms of size and contribution and impact and so on. It's also, if you want to think about it, the largest NGO on the face of the planet. At least search is the largest non-profit business, because search itself loses money. It's ads that make the money. And so, if you really think about how search is given to people for free, that every piece of information you've ever looked for is now at your fingertips for free, you start to realize that this approach to let me solve a big problem can be rewarded very, very, very handsomely. So in my 5 years as a chief business officer of Google X, we were looking for problems that affect humanity at a scale of 1 billion people or more. And believe it or not, we found 3 to 4 problems a week that were worth working on. Our world is full of problems. Business leaders who can actually commit to solving problems, not to just the bottom line and the profitability and the P&Ls that we work on and the HR factors that we measure, but actually to making a difference. Those are the people that are going to create the future and create businesses that are the size of Google, or at least comparatively compared to the existing surrounding businesses. They will create incredibly large, incredibly successful, incredibly appreciated businesses that people depend on and cannot do without. The way to do that has always been to hire incredible people. And the way to do that has always been to create an environment that actually focuses on the people more than it focuses on anything else. And, I know that maybe people will always say, oh, you bring everything back to happiness, Mo. Yeah, because at the end of the day, why would anyone work for you if they're unhappy? Now, of course, you can compensate them by paying them a little more and say, shut up, just work when you're unhappy. Yeah, you're going to do it for a while. It's going to cost you more. The right way to do it is to actually make people love to come to work. The way to make them love to come to work is not to lie to them and create slogans that they feel is not true. It's actually to create an environment where they believe in what they're doing and they feel happy doing it, and they do it with people that they love, that make them happy at work. And that truly has been, if you want, the summary of my experience of 30 years in working in corporate America at major companies. I realized that my job, as soon as I became a manager, was to create a happy environment that attracts the most talented people and keeps them, and then empower those people and take them and take obstacles out of their way. As a leader, my job was to make it easier for them to get what they were supposed to get done. And honestly, the only harshness I had in my organization was, we're going to agree a target. I'm going to make you happy. I'm going to empower you to achieve the target. But if you miss the target, I would ask you to leave your place so that someone else comes and takes it. Now, when people were happy doing what they're doing, they really wanted to stay. And so accordingly, they achieved every single target. I've never missed a target in my entire 30 years of work, because simply I could manage to create purposeful, happy environment where the best came to work and stayed.